Hey everybody, this is Abe at mountaintimefarm.com coming to you with episode number 4 of Abe's Agroforestry Afternoons, wherein I walk around and explore my agroforestry planting, check out my tree nursery, talk about growing trees and plants and all kinds of stuff up here in the great frosty north of Missoula, Montana. So anyway, there's my orchard behind me, and we're going to take a little stroll, talk about what's happening today, the last day of February 2025, February 28th. And yeah, I walked out here kind of wanting to survey all the tree tubes. I kind of wanted to talk about tree tubes today because really don't like using them. I try a bunch of different kinds made out of pipes, real tree tubes like name brand ones that are sort of homemade and made out of rolled up sheet metal, window screen, hardware cloth, all the different ways, you know, that you take precautions against voles and gophers and rabbits and all the critters that eat your trees during the winter. And so last fall I got into planting out a bunch of stuff, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to put tree tubes on these this winter. I'm just going to let them rip, and if they get chewed off, so be it, you know. They were pretty big trees, so I figured they got enough roots on them that if they do get eaten off on the ground, they'll be able to regrow. Whereas you know, for some of my very smaller stuff that I direct seeded and very small transplants, I did put tree tubes on those just because they're so small that if they were to get eaten, they might not have enough vigor to come back with force. So anyway, I'm gonna take a pause, turn the camera around, and show you what I'm talking about. So I got all these trees out here that I just decided to leave them, you know, no protection at all. And I've been rather shocked to discover that I can't find a single one that's been chewed on by voles, which is kind of crazy. It's sort of blowing my mind. You know, I've looked all over and I can't find any, you know, stuff that voles and gophers, pocket gophers, and stuff that they just love to chew on. And none of them are eaten. And I'm kind of wondering why, you know, it's pretty weird. I think part of what's going on is I learned about Syntropic agroforestry and how to like manage the grass using sort of syntropic informed methods. And by golly, it might be responsible for what's going on with my lack of vole damage on all these trees. So say you're looking down a row. I cut the grass on both sides, this side and then this side over here, in mid-May to mid-June, when it's at its lushest and greenest, and when it's just about to put out its little flowers to make the seed heads. Pile it on the row, pile it on the tree row, and because it's so wet and green and lush, it melts down and like sort of composts in place or whatever and makes all this slimy stuff. And I have a feeling that the remnants of that, which is what this is, just does not make good habitat for voles over the winter. I mean, it's soaking wet, and I feel like they like to be kind of dry, you know. When the grass is taller and uncut, it's sort of elevated up a little bit, you know, like this is kind of an example. The grass throughout the field can stand up, you know, 2 feet or so and be pretty thick. And the snow doesn't always fall all the way down, and so you find in the summertime they make these little trails under the snow. You find them in the spring when the snow melts, these little trails that run all over. And cutting the grass and depriving them of that grass and then concentrating it in a way that makes it inhospitable to the little buggers might be why there's hardly any of them, any apple trees, pear trees, hazelnuts, whatever, apricots. I can't find a single tree that has been chewed on. Something I am curious about is that I do have a fair bit of wood placed around the orchard from like big logs back there and around the perimeter, a lot of big logs. And underneath that kind of stuff, you know, sometimes you do find in the spring when you flip them over, sometimes if it's a big enough log, you'll find a little chewed up little nest of grass, you know, very finely chopped. You know what a vole nest looks like when you find it. And so I kind of worry about that under all these logs, you know, giving them that little bit of shelter that they might need to have an edge. But I think just getting rid of most of the quackgrass, at least keeping it cut back, has really done the trick perhaps on the voles. I mean, granted, I still do have a ton of tree tubes out, but let me see if I can get around with the aluminum one in the front. There's a certain point where, man, they shine. It's kind of hard to do without casting a shadow on it, but you can see them from the road. They just like glint, like the road's way back there, if I can get zoomed in on it, but I can't. Yeah, you can see it from the road. All these tree tubes, I mean, there's a ton of them. Oh yeah, so there's the road back there, that line that's near horizontal in the back. So you're driving by, you know, coming along, and you look out here and you see all of these rows of shiny things and white things or whatever. And I think it's ugly. So I don't really like tree tubes, you know. I want to be all natural. Get rid of all the plastic and like, you know, if a fire were to roll through, a lot of this stuff might not make it. And certainly the stuff that's in something like this wouldn't make it, because if this caught fire and melted down, that thing would be screwed, you know, whatever's growing in there. What do we got in there? Honey locust. Nice. These work, you know, they keep the voles off of stuff. And, but gosh, they're ugly. I don't like them. So anyway, maybe I'll, I don't know, skip a couple rows over, see what else we can find. There is some taller grass over here a little bit further. So maybe if we go to an unmowed part of the orchard, we might find some voles that chewed off some bark. Let's see. So yeah, I did mow this side of this row, put the grass there, and this side of, and then boom, you can see exactly where I didn't mow. So the grass normally out here through the winter is super thick, you know. So this is ideal cover for voles. And yeah, so let's take a look around, see if we can't find any trees that have been chewed on. No, nope, nothing there. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they've just been having a bad year, or the foxes have been really getting them down. Who knows, you know. Tough life being a vole. Maybe they got seasonal depression and they didn't want to chew on any trees for some reason, but yeah, there's just no damage anywhere. Anyway, that's kind of pretty much all I wanted to talk about with this video, but I feel like I'll keep rolling for a couple minutes and just kind of say what I see and what's on my mind. So this row here, this is my English walnut row as the target crop. So in Syntropic Agroforestry, there's usually a crop that you're trying to grow, like your target or your goal of what you're trying to grow. So from this row over is the walnut zone, because walnuts don't necessarily play nicely with other fruits, you know, apples, pears, plums, stuff in the rose family. They exude a chemical that screws up other plants. So all the walnuts are over here. Yeah, all the rest of the stuff can do what it does over there, but the walnuts are over here. This row's English walnut, which planted a fair number of them. It takes a while to find the cold hardy ones, but eventually you get there. And I've got some survivors, actually the best survivors all the way down at the other end. I ain't gonna walk all the way over there. But next row is my heart nut row. Same deal. Heart nuts are, some people call them Japanese walnut, but they're just another species of walnut. And then I got my butternut row. Butternut row's been pretty hit or miss. Most of them have died. Although I do have a couple that are still hanging on. And I planted a bunch from seed last year, but it's kind of too early to tell how many of those worked out. And then along the fence line over here, we got black walnuts all kind of interstrewn along here, although they're not necessarily the target crop, although maybe they should be, because they do grow here quite well. Anyway, maybe I'll take a little wander down the fence line. My stick fence is holding up pretty good, keeping the deer out all winter. I really can't wait to talk about the stick fence and the machine that I built to make the stick fence, which I just call the fence machine. I think I'm actually going to start selling them on my website. They're just really great little fences, and you can watch the white-tailed deer crash into this fence and bounce off of it, and it's quite satisfying, I gotta say, watching them really trying to get in here but having a tough go of it. So anyway, yeah, I would love to talk all about the fence, but save it for another video. This here is my #1 apple tree from my first batch of seedling apples that I think I grew in spring of 2018. And I believe this apple tree was planted fall of 2018. So I've been planting stuff out here along this row, down the fence, and along the back fence, and along the fence on the other side. I started planting all those the end of 2018, putting them out here in tree shelters, you know, making little wire hoops. These apples, I set up 4 pallets around the base of them, which I actually really like as a method, versus hoops of wire. It's not as pretty to look at, but it blocks the wind, it blocks the winter sun, which can be pretty harsh. And trees that you plant with pallets around them really do well and survive quite nicely. I wanted to show this tree. I think I'm gonna put this tree into the nursery trade. It's a crabapple with red leaves, glorious deep red leaves, and the trunk of it has a very subtle, maybe if I back up it'll be a little more easily seen. So this tree has a little spiral to it all throughout it, which is very nice. The trunk on this thing, when all the little spurs have red leaves on them, it's really a sight to behold. Really nice tree. You can kind of even see the spiraling up in the tip, the growing tip. But yeah, it is a little corkscrew, little red corkscrew. So really stoked about this tree. I want to get this thing grafted out or rooted out, root some grafts, and start propagating this and selling it. It seems like a really sweet little crabapple. Hopefully it makes good berries. Who knows? Maybe not. Anyway, I want to take a break and turn the camera around and get a little selfie with this tree because I just like it so much. Okay, still this tree right here, red corkscrew number 1. I'm not sure what it'll be called when I come out with it, but this is a good one right here. I got really tons of good trees to put into production, and I can because they're all seedlings, you know. I planted darn near every single one of the trees in this whole orchard from seeds. So they're all different varieties, yet unknown to the world, only coming into production. So I got some years ahead of me of judging some fruit and seeing what the fruit's like, the flavor, the texture, all that sort of stuff. Plus just the growing qualities, you know, for horticulture, ornamental plantings, or using them for all the different things people use trees for, you know, food, fuel, fiber, fodder, medicine, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I'm having a wonderful afternoon. It's been like super nice. I kind of want to just keep walking around and talking and take a quick stroll in front of the junkyard, you know, all your farms everywhere, you know, it's kind of unavoidable. You wind up with some big piles of metal. So anyway, I like to weld and do construction and stuff, and so try to keep the piles at a minimum. It's not so easy when you're working on stuff and building things. You wind up with a lot of junk and odds and ends and whatever, and I feel like it's kind of important to stay on top of that stuff because after a while it starts to get you down, you know. People drive by the road and look out at your place and it looks like a giant junkyard or whatever, and it's like, that guy's not a farmer, he's a trash collector. But you know, agriculture ain't always pretty, you know. I grow a lot of trees in milk crates, so I got a pile of milk crates over here that's kind of enormous, you know. I use these things for air pruner boxes and they work really good. You can grow a bunch of trees with some really nice root systems in milk crates. Highly recommend it for your own orchard. Getting into the nursery here, just tightening this thing up. Let's see, this row right here is hazelnuts. I grew 4 types last year, seedlings of 4 varieties, I should say. Yamhill, Jefferson, which everybody grows. I also did McDonald and Barcelona. And then I grew a bunch of other ones too for my own personal stash or whatever. And I think I grew about 8,000 hazelnuts last year. So I didn't have time to get them all planted, so I healed a bunch of them in. You know, you put them in a group like this and you can bury them in a cluster and they'll make it through the winter just fine like that. Whereas you can like line them out, you know, like I guess I'll turn it around like this down the row. Yeah, love growing hazelnuts. They're one of my favorites. What can I say? I like growing it all. Anyway, I guess I could wrap this up. Getting back around up to the homestead. Maybe I'll show off my new beds real quick. I was gonna grow a whole bunch of trees for the DNRC State Community Forest Program, but it all got screwed up with Trump pulling the grant funding. So a bunch of people that use grants to buy trees to do community forests, you know, they didn't wind up doing that, so got put on hold. I still grow stuff for them. I got a couple rows of what are they called, Saskatoon service berries for the Urban and Community Forest Program, which is a great program, and they should really support and give them all their grant funding back so that then I can grow a whole bunch of trees for them. So anyway, that's what I kind of hope happens this next month. We'll see. We shall see. So anyway, that's it for today. The last day of February 2025. This is Abe at mountaintimefarm.com. Buy some trees from me, and tune in next time for the next episode of Abe's Agroforestry Afternoons. So anyway, ciao.